I'm going to speak about Toru Dutt today. She is perhaps the first women poet of Indian English tradition. She lived for a very short span of time. Born in 1856 and died in 1877. And in that short span of time, she has produced some very fine poetry and fiction, translation from French, and also the reinterpretation of the ancient epic stories of India. She is someone who is being called as the Keats of Indo-English literature, as she died at a very young age. Had she lived for a longer period of time, her contribution to literature would have been a never-ending process. Critics describe her as a fragile blossom that withered so fast. What is most remarkable in one so young is the motive realization that East and West are not two antithetical entities, and a commingling was not only possible but also the most fruitful form of the creative art. In this awareness, she can be regarded as one of the forerunner of Indian English Renaissance. So today we are going to study about Toru Dutt's The Sower. When we talk about The Sower is a translated work, and The Sower is actually written by the famous French writer Victor Hugo, and it is something which has been translated by Toru Dutt. When we talk about Victor Hugo, he is famous among the Romantic writers. He was one of the rationalist writer among the Russian writers. He was honored in many ways. What we people can see his portrait in the French currencies. When we talk about Hugo, romantic features can be considered as one of the major factors which made him famous among his contemporaries. The poem titled The Sower is one among such work. In this module of lecture, we are going to study about the text of the poem. We are going to study about the historical context, the structure of the poem, the theme of the poem. We will talk about the significance of the title. We will be doing the brief analysis of the poem, and then we will be ending up with the conclusion. So let's begin with the text of The Sower. Let us now study the text of the poem. The Sower by Toru Dutt. Sitting in a porchway cool, sunlight I see dying fast. Twilight hasten on to rule. Working hours have well nigh passed. Shadows run across the lands. But a sower lingers still. Old in rags, he patient stand. Looking on, I feel a thrill. Black and high, his silhouette dominates the furrows deep. Now to sow the task is set. Soon shall come a time to reap. Marches he along the plain, to and fro, and scatters white. From his hands the precious grains. Muse I as I see him stride. Darkness deepens, fades the light. Now his gestures to mine eyes are august and strange. His height seems to touch the starry skies. Now let us talk about the historical context of the poem Sower. The poem Sower was written when Napoleon's French Imperial Army was in power. At that time, Victor Hugo was serving as a general in that army. Later on, he left that army. If we just look towards the structure of the poem is something which is being divided into 20 lines. There are 5 stanzas and 5 quatrains. The Sower is an organic poem. There are no traditional rules, that is, no free or blank, because there is no iambic parameter. But still the poem follows a rhyme scheme, because if we just look towards the structure of the poem, this is what we people can say: cool rule, land stands, deep reap. So these are certain kind of the common words which suggest a certain rhyme pattern. Now let us discuss about the theme of the poem. When we just look towards the poem itself, the poem is about the farmer and the farming. Another theme which the poem develops is it sets a kind of an optimistic approach which leads towards a strong determination. The poem also talks about breaking the hardships, which later on suggest that what we people can do, the more we toil, the more we struggle, the more we people are able to overcome the hurdles in our life. So this poem teaches everyone a lesson, and to overcome that kind of the hurdle, one should have a courage to face it. So let us discuss the poem in detail. Now let us have a brief analysis of the poem The Sower by Toru. If we just look in towards the title of the poem, the root word is sow. Sow is a verb and sower is a noun. So here the sower is a person who implants the seeds. So when we talk about the poem Sower, so here this poem is describing about the farmer and his farming. The message which is being conveyed through the poem is the optimistic and a kind of a hope which is being developed with the poem itself. Now let us look into the first stanza of the poem itself. The first stanza says, "Sitting in a porchway cool, sunlight I see dying fast." So here the first stanza, here the poet deals with the description of the nature. So poet is sitting in his room, and that is something which can be considered. Porchway is something which can be considered as a covered or a sheltered place. And there what he is doing, he is watching the beauty of the nature itself. So as I told you that Victor Hugo is someone who can be considered as one of the romantic poets. So nature plays a very important part in his poetry. So this is what he is sitting. He is sitting in a very comfortable manner, and from there he is viewing the beauty of the nature. Sunlight I see dying fast. So this can be considered sunlight I see dying fast can be considered as the end of the day. So this can be considered as the evening time is something which is approaching. Twilight hasten on to rule. Twilight is a faint light after the day. So it means that it is functioning. That means a darkness is something which is appearing very fastly. So that means there is a kind of a dominance of the night time or the dominance of the darkness. So it is a kind of a hint that what we people should do, we people can wind up our work, and this is the time when we should go back to our home. So twilight hastens on to rule, working hours have well nigh passed. So the working hours, the time period which is being considered to work, is something which is coming to an end, and now every work is over. So there will be a kind of a night time and a darkness all around. So here again it is suggesting that this is where the nature is trying to dominate on the human beings. That means the darkness is proceeding. So it suggests that all the human beings should go back to their home and they should take rest. So it is the time to wind up your work. Look into the second stanza. Shadows run across the land. The twilight has beautified the place, but sooner, this is what we people can say, that there is a kind of an appearance of the darkness, or the darkness is overshadowing the place. All of a sudden, the poet is someone who is being struck up by the sight of the farmer itself. And this is what he says: shadows run across the land, but a sower lingers still. From this onward, the whole attention of the poem is towards the farmer itself. Old in rags, he patient stands. So this farmer is someone who is wearing a old, and rags are the old piece of clothes. So he is wearing the old tattered clothes. Looking on, I feel a thrill. So this farmer is someone who is waiting for the right time, and as soon as the poet looks at the farmer, he is thrilled. Out of curiosity, he just wanted to know that why this farmer is someone who is standing when the work is over and when the day is going to pass. Now let us look towards the next stanza, that is the fourth stanza of the poem itself. Soon shall come the time to reap. This is something where we ended. Marches he along the plain to and fro, and scatters wide from his hands the precious grain. Muse I as I see him stride. So in the next quatrain, this is what he is suggesting. Soon shall come a time to reap. Before coming towards the next stanza, let me just explain you this line in brief. Soon shall come a time to reap is something where he is talking about that he will be getting a good amount of money for the kind of the crops which will be yielded this year. So this is how we people can say. On the first stanza, we have seen that how the nature is something which is dominating on the human beings. That means the suggestion of the darkness is something which tells or which gives a kind of a hint that it's time to go back, it's time to wind up your work, and it's time to go back to your home. And here when we just look towards the perspective of the farmer itself, farmer is someone who doesn't want it to go back. He wanted something. So he wanted to put his labor into something. That means he needs to achieve something. So this mindset of the farmer is something which is dominating the nature. So here the human thought system is something which is powerful, and that is something which is superseding the laws of the nature itself. We can say that man cannot rebel against the nature, but here what we people can say, this man is not rebelling against the nature, but his strong determination is something where he is ready to work hard, where he is ready to toil, and where he is ready to stand against the will of the nature itself. So here marches he along the plain. So marching is something where we walk through the long steps. So the farmer, what he is doing, he is marching on the field. Marching on the field means, that means what he is trying to do, he is walking with a long steep steps. So to and fro scatters wide. So he is working laboriously. From his hands the precious grain. So here these grains are something which are the very precious elements for the farmer itself, because these grains or these seeds are the only property which are being left for the farmer. So from his hand, so this is a kind of an imagery which is being generated over here in the fourth stanza, and this is what it suggests, that the farmer is someone who is marching and to and fro, that means here and there in this direction as well as everywhere. What he is doing, he is trying to scatter all his seeds, and these grains are something which can be considered as a symbol of his prosperity and wealth. The only wealth of the farmer is the grains which he is having in his hands right now, because this is the kind of an idea which he is thinking, that most probably whatever efforts he is putting right now, he is going to get a kind of the positive results. So that means his field, in these fields he is going to harvest a rich variety of the crop. Muse I as I see him stride. Muse, that means now even the poet is getting gloomy. He is feeling bad. I don't know why the poet is feeling bad for the farmer. Maybe just because of the hard work, just because of the way he is trying to put much effort on his sowing, so that can be considered, that creates a kind of feelings inside the minds of the poet, that there is a certain kind of a feeling which is generated, and these feeling can be considered as, by looking at the painful efforts of the farmer itself, the poet is feeling bad. Now let us look towards the fifth stanza of the poem, that is something which is the conclusion of the poem itself. The last stanza concludes with a description of the night time. Darkness deepens. So this suggests that darkness is something which is pervading all over. So that reddishness and blackness is something which is coming to an end. It's totally dark. Fades the light. So fades the light means now the farmer is, or the sower is invisible. He could not see. The poet could not see the sower. So now his gestures to mine eyes. So but still he can imagine that that sower might have not gone back to his home. Instead of that, the way he was doing his work, he might have continued doing his work, because this is what the people can say, that he was toiling and he was working very hard, because now the sower is invisible in front of the poet itself. Now his gestures to mine eyes are august and strange. His height seems to touch the starry skies. Now we are coming towards line number 19 and line number 20. Line number 19 and line number 20 suggest a kind of a figurative use of the lines, and that can be considered as the hyperbole. So here this is a mere exaggeration form of the farmer, where he is saying that are august and strange, his height seems to touch the starry skies. So that means August here is not a month. August here is someone who can be considered as a very dignified person, or someone who can be considered as a very noble person. So this is something which suggests a kind of a majestic appearance of the farmer itself. So here the farmer was able to create a kind of a deep impression on the author's or on the poet's mindset. And this is what we people have seen, that suddenly there is a kind of hope, or there is a kind of a positive feeling which is being generated inside the mind of the poet, where he is saying that the image, the majestic image of the farmer, that means his image is created in such a kind of a manner that it has grown in such a kind of a gigantic manner, that here his head is something which is touching the sky. So that means his determination was strong enough that even the circumstances could not change his mindset. So here what we people can say, that he was someone that who was very much prepared for the better result of his cultivation. So that is what we people can see over here, that his tireless work and the way to achieve his dream, to fulfill his dream, was something which called him to work and work. So this is all about the poem. I hope you liked this video. Thank you.